Melee versus ranged comparisons in Call of Dragons communities have been the key factors, because all the time melee players are saying they are the best, but at the same time ranged players are saying they are the best one, right? I played this game for 1000 days, already 1100 days soon, and of course I want to share my opinion regarding this topic, right? We are going to check out the advantages and disadvantages of being a ranged player, and same for the melee players, right? After that, we are going to have a conclusion, and of course I will share my idea which one is actually the better version to play Call of Dragons. By myself, you can see I'm archer player, which means I am a ranged player, ranged main, right? So, of course, we are going to start with the advantages of being a ranged player, right? Because most of the time, free-to-play players actually choose to be ranged, and that's actually a pretty good decision, right? Because it's more of a safe way of gameplay. But of course, the advantages are the range, right? Archers have medium range, mages has very far range, which is the highest range in the game, right? Just because they have high range, they also have a high attack, right? A magic attack is the highest. Well, of course, it's the only troop type, only mage. We can't really compare anything else. It's pretty high, right? And for the archers as a ranged troops, we have the highest amount of physical attack in the game, right? That's the biggest advantages which we can actually have, right? And of course, the main one will always be the range, but this range, of course, gives us a lot of survivability, way less troops in our hospital, but of course, this advantage is in a way that a superpower, right? Of course, ranged troops will deal more damage, but whenever we're gonna speak about disadvantages, of course, the topic will change, and of course, the idea will be that they really hard to survive, right? Of course, the advantage of ranged troops are in many different factors. Where whenever there is a war, open field PvP with your alliance members, like 100 accounts versus 100 accounts, that's when you are actually playing the game, right? That's the one way, and defeating behemoths in Call of Dragons without ranged troops are basically impossible. So for the war gameplay and for the behemoth defeats, ranged troops are the best ones, right? Of course, it doesn't really mean that they are horrible in other factors in the game, but since we are speaking about the advantages, defeating behemoths and fighting in open field PvP, that's your pros, that's your advantage as ranged player, especially if you are a free-to-play player, for sure. And of course, for pay-to-play players, also you have to enjoy being a ranged player, right? If you don't like having range as your primary attribute for your legions, then it means you are melee player, right? But for sure, defeating behemoths and war gameplay is the ranged player's biggest advantage, right? But of course, we are going to speak about the disadvantages, cons of being a ranged player, right? As we spoke, defeating behemoths and being good in war gameplay, we also have Roots of War, we also have Abyss, right? Anything which requires you to be fast, and the biggest disadvantage of being a ranged player is having one of the lowest march speed in the game, right? Which means if the fighting field is too long and you don't have your allies, it's impossible for you to escape from running infantry or running cavalry. A Roots of War map is pretty big for ranged players, and that's why they are really bad in Roots of War. Same goes for Abyss, right? Because Abyss is pretty big also, and whenever you are playing in a big distances, you have to have high march speed. Also, the disadvantages of being a ranged player is, of course, your defensive stats, right? You are always squishy. Once you are getting caught, it's impossible for you to actually get out, right? Before it was only from the cavalry players, but nowadays infantry players are dealing huge amount of damage also, and if like 2 or 3 infantry march is going to catch your mages, or even your archers, unfortunately, you don't have high enough HP or physical defensive stats to actually fight them back. In 1 versus 1, even like archer march or mage march might be even get destroyed by infantry player, right? That's the honest truth. That's why biggest disadvantage of ranged players and ranged troop types is of course being squishy, having low march speed, and of course they are not great in Roots of War and Abyss, right? Pretty many disadvantages of being actually ranged main, right? Of course, later we also gonna speak about heroes, right? So right now, of course, we are going to move towards the melee troop type in Call of Dragons. We're gonna have the discussions regarding advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons of being infantry or cavalry mains, right? Of course, since first one was advantages, we're gonna start with the pros of being a melee player. Pros of being melee player: you are going to have a highest march speed in the game. If you are cavalry, you will be you will have highest march speed. If you will be infantry main, you will be second highest march speed troop type in the game, right? You will be a really tanky. Cavalry and infantry especially infantry has of course high defensive stats, but with the heroes which we are getting introduced for infantry gameplay, they also deal huge amount of damage, right? That's the key factor. Of course, cavalry doesn't really have like highest defensive stats, but cavalry has highest march speed in the game, right? If you understand how to play around the battlefield, especially in war gameplay, or even in Roots of War, even in Abyss. Basically, a lot of game modes in Call of Dragons are more suited towards a melee troop type in the game, right? They are most tanky, they are the fastest, they are actually playable in more modes than ranged units, because I think, and everybody knows, without infantry, war gameplay would be super boring, right? So basically, in every game mode which we have in the game, a melee troop type has a good way of saying that they are top 1 or top 2. In Roots of War and in Abyss, infantry and cavalry is the base troop type, which is the melee. And of course, in war gameplay, without infantry, nothing really happens. Of course, they have some disadvantages, which we have to speak, since we are basically comparing both of them in the same way. But yeah, more game modes available and fun for melee troop types than ranged ones, and that's the biggest advantage. Having more defensive stats, having more march speed will be more fun in some ways to play, right? Of course, we have to speak about disadvantages of being cavalry or infantry troop type, right? First of all, well, for cavalry, we have to say that in behemoth fights, you aren't gonna be using too much cavalry troops in behemoth fights in Call of Dragons, right? That's the biggest disadvantage, right? Also, yeah, it's not about troop type, but we have to speak about heroes. You have to have at least like 4 or 5 cavalry march, legendary heroes and epic heroes together with a synced up battlefield. It's costly, right? You will have to spend a lot of legendary tokens to have that amount of legendary heroes awakened. That's the key, right? So also, that's the biggest factor. I know you can play one march of cavalry troop and have fun, but if you want to be a cavalry main, you have to have multiple heroes which are maxed out, and you are sinking the speed, march speed of those heroes, and you are running around the battlefield. That's the way cavalry players are playing this game, right? And of course, it's costly, but if you are pay-to-pay player and you like to have high march speed, uh, that's not a big problem. But being a costly troop type, of course, is a disadvantage. And of course, whenever you are fighting as a melee troop type, you will have a lot of troops in your hospital, and you will have to be resource healing for sure, right? There is some occasions for ranged units to have low amount of hospital troops wounded, but infantry and cavalry, the type of gameplay they have, it's impossible for you to preserve your hospital. You have to have a lot of resources in your game, right? Because without resources, you won't gonna have troops, and without troops, infantry or ranged troops, they are basically nothing. So you have to have a lot of resources. You have to invest in a lot of heroes. That's the biggest disadvantage of being a melee player, right? That simple said, it's costly, right? That's the biggest disadvantage of being a cavalry or infantry player. It's especially bad for free-to-play players, right? Since we got the advantages and disadvantages of ranged and melee troop types, of course, we have to speak about the heroes, right? Because that's actually the key. As I said, we have already advantages of ranged and advantages of infantry. For the beginners, I would say for first year players, like if you are playing this game like for 1 year, all the hero pairs which you are getting, well, for sure, archer ones are good, mage ones are average, but when we are speaking about infantry and cavalry, their gameplay actually starts when you are getting Goresh, Skogul, Kuma, Leikwan, Joren, and Elanir, right? These are the heroes which makes your gameplay strong as a melee player, as an infantry player. And for the cavalry, that's of course Emrys, Bakshi, Urag, Tobin, and of course Neya, Agnar, and Freya. So basically, you have to have a lot of heroes for melee troop types in the game, in a good positions, in a good skills, and that's really tough for free-to-play players. But if you are a spender and if you are paying in this game, then melee troop type will be your way to go, right? Because you will have the resources of having a lot of legendary tokens, and that's the key. For ranged heroes, actually, well, of course, Magrat and Zaida, and Ruby and Kailan will be the best ones, and for magic ones, Lilia, Yungming, and Gromara, and Welin, right? That's the basic heroes, which are basically the good and the best ones for ranged ones, and simply because they are not too much of them, like in infantry and cavalry, that's why for free-to-play players, being a ranged player is still a good choice. So yeah, that's the small information I wanted to give regarding heroes, and basically we can have easy conclusion, right? We can have easy conclusion. If you are playing this game for a long time, you will understand that melee troop type is actually the best one, and that's how the game is going to be, right? Because without infantry and without cavalry, especially without infantry, nothing really happens in this game. We see that the infantry heroes are getting better and better, more damage, more counterattack, but we have to mention, if you are a free-to-play player, ranged troop type is still the best one for you, because you won't gonna have the amount of legendary tokens as some of the pay-to-play players, and it will be impossible for you to catch up to them, right? As a ranged players, I'm ranged players, and I understand that melee troop type in this game is way better. Basically, everything beats me in 1 versus 1 fights as a ranged player, if we are comparing to melees, and in wars without infantry nothing happens. In Roots of War, Abyss, cavalry is the best one, and right now even infantry is getting closer to be same level as cavalry. So If you are spender, of course, melee troop type is superior for sure. Best one for late game, maybe a little bit weak for early game. If you are a free-to-play player, then ranged troop type is actually the best one for you because you have way less heroes to invest fully and with your way less legendary hero tokens. And of course, one more topic, resources. If you are going to be melee player, be ready to have a lot of resources because you will need way more than ranged players, right? That's how this game works. As an infantry or cavalry, you will always have to go melee and receive damage. As archer or as mage player, there is some occasions when you are not getting hit. Of course, there is counterattack damage, but of course, it's a big difference between getting hit by your opponents and receiving counterattack damage, right? So, of course, melee troop type is costly not only because of the legendary tokens and medals you is required to have, but also you will need to have a lot of resources in this game to actually keep fighting as an infantry or cavalry player, right? Basically, I tried my best to share, and of course, from my side as an archer player, as a ranged player, it's really tough to say that melee is better, but I like to share what I see by my eyes in Call of Dragons. I'm a fighter. I like to fight all the time. Right now, I had to be AFK for 1 month for migration, but I have been playing Abyss every single day whenever it's available, right? I can't play this game without fighting. So that's my opinion regarding ranged versus melee troops. As always, share your opinions regarding this topic, and as always, if you liked the video, press like, subscribe, share. It always gives me more and more motivation to make more content for this game. I wish everybody amazing day, morning, and night. We are going to see each other really soon. Bye bye and good luck.